I'm in the photography department. I teach one course a year. It's in performance art. I retired from the University of Nevada, Reno last December, and I used to teach here long ago. I am a scholar. I have a PhD in history of culture from the University of Chicago. All my work comes out of really my scholarship and my writing. I direct you to my website, joannafrueh.com, where there's lots of information. It's a gorgeously designed website. There's lots of visual information and writing too. So I do performance. Obviously, I do photo work. I do collaborative photos with other people. They really do come out of my performance work. Also, there are videos that come out of my performance work. So I'm not a technician with video, but I use it as a medium for my performance work. So sometimes I go in studio and record. I just did a performance here called Goddess of Roses, September 5th, in the theater right over here, the Moroni. And it's the first time that there is a great video of the actual live performance. And what else do I do? Obviously, I'll show you the books in a second, because so that's sort of the pre-intro for me. What my real intro is, several years ago, I realized that, and also I'm an art critic. I started writing for Art in America years and years ago when I lived in Chicago. So that was sort of one of my beginnings as somebody in the art world. And anyway, you can look at, I'm not going to go into my history there unless somebody asks me later, because you can go on the website and find any of this information. But anyway, several years ago, I realized, with somewhat of a start actually, that I want an art of uplift. As a critic that I will write about, and so my choices in terms of what I write about as a critic these days always have to do with that. And it's so interesting. If you do art, and then of course for my own art, that's what I want. And I was handing this thing around for my book that's coming out. It's Essential Performance Text from 1979 to 2004. It's called Clairvoyance for Those in the Desert, which was the title of a performance piece that I did with my first husband, actually here in Tucson. We used to live in Tucson in 1985, I believe. But in that book, I see this, it's about transformation. My collaborator on these pieces, Jill O'Brien, wrote the introduction for the book. She's a photographer, she's a drawer, she's a painter. And I said, this book is about transformation. I said, go from 1979 to now. I see this extraordinary change in my work of somebody who was very turbulent emotionally, had hostility, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, all of these things. And then it's like, whoa. It really changes. For instance, one of the very early pieces in that book is called Justifiable Anger, and the last piece in that book from 2004, and there have been other pieces since, it's called Ambrosia, and it's about innocence. If you had told me in 1979 I would be doing a piece about innocence sometime, never in my life would I have thought that. I see this as a piece of incredible innocence. It's called Venus Verticordia, and my second husband, Russell Dudley, and I, both my ex-husbands are artists. Anyway, Russell does sculpture and installation work and photography. And so he really has been my major collaborator in my life. We divorced in 2001. This piece was done in 2004 after the divorce, which testifies to, yes, we're still very good friends, and it's really nice to have that. I brought in my two earlier books. This is Erotic Faculties from 1996, and this is a piece actually from a piece of mine called Mouthpiece, which is going to be in Clairvoyance, but we faked this in his studio. It's not from the live performance, but we did it especially for the cover of the book. But I brought this book in so that you could see that in some of these books, there are what I call these black and white portfolio sections of photos that we did. Yes, they are self-portrait photos for the most part of me. Then in this book, Monster Beauty, Building the Body of Love, that came out in 2001. Also, my books, especially Erotic Faculties and Monster Beauty, I struggled with being a scholar. And I love that. I love going to the library. I love reading. I really love writing, too. I am a writer. so putting the scholarship and the personal together was like, this is not done within scholarship. I am highly, highly original, as it says in this. And I was like, oh, thank you, Duke University Press publicity, because that's who's publishing the book. It says, the performance artist Joanna Frueh has emerged over the past 25 years as a wildly original voice in feminist art. When I read wildly original, I was, thank you, someone, for finally saying that, for finally telling it how it is. So anyway, and it's their publicity. I didn't write that, so it's like, yay. These books really, you can tell, I mean, they're scholarship and they're also highly, highly personal, intimate indeed. So anyway, here there is another section, one of these portfolio sections. Sometimes these are self-portrait nudes. I'm very interested in the nude, in the history of the nude in Western art. Indeed, there's a piece in here called Dressing Aphrodite. I deal with the goddess Aphrodite and with the female nude in Greek art as well. Also in here, I actually write a piece about the self-portrait section and my self-portraits because I felt it was needed. I didn't write something like that in this book, and I felt people didn't quite get it. Here, the book that a card is going around with, Swooning Beauty, a memoir of pleasure. So this one, I would say the monster beauty and erotic faculties start with the scholarly, and then the intimate and personal is there. And then this one, well, it's a memoir. So it really begins with that aspect, and you can tell, though, that the person who wrote this is an intellectual or a scholar for sure. And that came out of really the deaths of both my parents and the divorce from Russell. So anyway, I had started this saying a number of years ago, or several years ago, now not that many years ago actually, in this century indeed it occurred, that I wanted an art of uplift. And then a couple months ago, I was reading a book called The Yoga of Sound, and it's written by a man who is a scholar and a musician. And he asks the Dalai Lama what the Dalai Lama's advice is for artists. And the Dalai Lama says, that I'm not quoting him directly, but the Dalai Lama says, take care of your own negativity first. Take care of that. Because the world, the society is burdened enough with negativity. It's burdened enough. Take care of your stuff, and then use your gifts and talents to give healing to the world. And I read that, and I thought, you know, I'm putting that in something I write, because people will listen to the Dalai Lama, you know. So anyway, but I felt like prior to that, my work had really begun to do that. Venus Verticordia. Sometimes what I do, since I am an art historian, even though my PhD is in history of culture, but it was in 19th century art history and literature, primarily French and English stuff. My dissertation is called The Rossetti Woman. So it had to do with Dante Gabriel Rossetti's art and writing both. And Dante Gabriel Rossetti, of course, was a pre-Raphaelite painter and poet. So, and I loved 19th century stuff. So anyway, you know, I did not bring a big image of the Rossetti, but I will leave this open and you can pass by it. Here is Dante Gabriel Rossetti's Venus Verticordia. And mine is what? Venus Verticordia 2005, done in 2004, but shown in 2005 the first time. And so this is my favorite painting by him. I could say many things about it in terms of what art historians have said about it, etc. If you want to read something actually about what I do say about that, I had a retrospective in 2005. This is a catalog for it. You can certainly get it online. I write an essay called, what is it, Garden Party or something like that. And I talk about Rossetti in it also. So I talk about certain things about this piece and what some critics have written about it, both in the 19th century, from the 19th century to current, one particular very famous feminist art historian, Griselda Pollock. And I disagree with what they've said. But nonetheless, certain things. The reason that it looks sort of blurry here is because it is based on a painting, Okay, so, and also this was shot in Russell's and my garden, which I got the house, so it was in that garden. The roses, I bought roses. There were also roses from our garden, other flowers, I forget what they are, astrameria or something like that in the front. Fake stuff that a student who was a fabulous painter, I had him make this halo, and this halo for me, which is just like a painting, you know, in the back. It's just, you know, it's a tondo. And so here are these fake butterflies on it, the fake butterflies and all. And I look like a very happy gal there, don't I? Yes, I do. Well, Rossetti, one of the things Rossetti did was for many of his paintings, he wrote sonnets. So I identify with Rossetti so much. I love, if you know Rossetti's work at all, starting in the, like, really 1859, he starts doing these bust length, or a little bit lower, portraits of women. For him, he didn't do nudes really. So the breast in Venus Verticordia, it's a very unusual painting for him. But like women surrounded by flowers. I adore flowers. Flowers appear in much of my work. Anyway, he wrote sonnets for many of the paintings. So he writes one for this, and then I wrote one for it. So if you were to get the catalog, you would see this on the back. But I'm going to read both of these sonnets. The Rossetti one, how much time do I have? I mean, a sonnet is... 5 minutes. Oh my God, time flies. Okay, let me just say this. His is depressing, mine is happy. Okay? So you can easily find Rossetti's sonnet on Venus Verticordia. You can easily find mine as well. But maybe I'll say a few things. I want to say some words about Jill's and my work. I say, and this is, you'll see, it's so based on his sonnet. I have the apple in my hand for you. My heart would never hold it back. I muse my eyes on love's sweet track into your spirit, right on cue. Perhaps, oh look, they are at peace, say I. Rejoice, the apple for your lips, the dart, so swiftly piercing you like art. The opening of your throat, you fly. A little space my glance is still with joy, and if I give the fruit that works my spell, my eyes shall flame embrace that eases, does not cloy. Then shall my butterflies take wing to air, and my far seas beckon to sailors who will dare a metamorphosis that cries to love, ahoy. So anyway, it's very playful with the Rossetti, but also it has seriousness. Oh God, was it fun to write. Okay, playing with Rossetti, what could be better? And when I wrote my dissertation, I had a dream, and I was flying through the cosmos with Rossetti and his girlfriend, who was, if you know, 19th century, William Morris's, actually his lover, who was William Morris's wife, Jane Morris. Anyway, in these were actually shot at the Arizona Inn. These are from a huge series of work that we did. And some of these works, there's a color series, many, lots. There's a big color series and black and white. We called the whole of both series Joanna in the Desert. However, there are small, and many of these, well, not many, but some color plates and some of the black and white, these two included. This is Threshold, this is Mistress of Plants. They'll be in Clairvoyance. Anyway, yeah, these were shot at the Arizona Inn. We had our smaller titles for these, for Joanna in the Desert as well. I adore the Sonoran Desert. It's why I moved here after I retired. Anyway, we call it Mistress of Plants, and we would call this the Victorian Garden, sort of after Rossetti. This one is called Threshold. This is from a smaller series that we call simply The Actress. And it's like I'm some starlet from the 50s. So is that my time?
Could we do one question?
You bet. Any questions? My clothes never hold microphones or equipment properly. Flimsy clothes. Okay.
Anybody have a question?
Surely someone has a question. Yes?
Do your performances ever incorporate like dance or?
No, they're text-based, of course, so I read that, and I improvise other things. Sometimes there's food, a huge chocolate cake. Go to my website, go to Performance. You'll see the one, The Aesthetics of Orgasm, with a huge chocolate cake with roses on it, and I dig into the cake. I have eaten a pint of ice cream, chocolate ice cream. I had 3 chocolate malts and Goddess of Roses that I did here. And then I read the text because every word, as a writer, every word is of exceeding importance to me. I want it the way that is, which is why I read it. I do not memorize it. I want it clear that this is a written text. But also, I go away from it. So I'll do stuff with the audience sometimes, or just do other things. Yep.
We could do one more question.
Yeah.
What's next? Do you have anything on the horizon?
Oh, God, I have so many things always on the horizon. I'm doing a new piece in Chicago in a couple of weeks called The Sphinx Unwinds Her Own Sweet Self. And that bears a relation to actually my MA thesis, which was called The Sphinx in the 19th Century, and deals with the femme fatale and my unwinding of my own identification with sort of the yuck stuff of the femme fatale, so that I'm much more approachable now. And happy and playful. And then I have various things written for another book that's coming out, and some of these photos will be shown in New York in April, and so there's always stuff going on. Yeah.
What role does mythology play in your work?
Very big. Very big, and it would be classical Greek mythology that plays the largest role. It's interesting, I'm going to India in January, and I'm anticipating that various things about that will come into play more. There are ways in which, for instance, Indian goddesses have come into my work a little bit, and I think they may be making their way into it more. Thanks so much.